Hello, everybody. I'm August, and you are listening to the QUARTERDECK Sailing Podcast. I'm on Isbjørn right now. You can hear the heater and dehumidifier going in the background, keeping her dry and warm. I know you guys are dying to know whether Andy and Mia bought a boat, so I'll be very quick. And you guys already know what I'm going to say, and that is please join us on the QUARTERDECK at quarterdeck.59-note.com. It is the best. You can interact with Andy and myself and our many kind and knowledgeable members. And Andy just posted a really nice article about the boat shopping that he's been doing with video, pictures, listings, the whole shebang. Great companion to this episode, so go to quarterdeck.59-note.com right now and sign up for your 2-week free trial. Hope to see you there.
Speed? Wait, rolling speed? What the fuck? I can't ever remember this.
Sound
speed. Damn it.
There we go.
I was going to say speed sound.
Yeah,
okay. Hi, August.
So she would. It's a reply to the question, which is sound. Because you'll ask everybody, right? Camera, sound, and then you reply sound speed as to indicate that your sound recorder has now reached its desired RPM.
Nice. That's on the reel to reel.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a bit antiquated,
cool.
but it's still in use. It's pretty cool. Call. So yeah. All right, we're back doing another podcast. This time also with Mia. Hey Mia, good to see you.
Hey August, good to see you.
Great, and of course. Andy, I'm seeing both of you here in at your little mission control unit. This is real nice. And now I know our audience, as and myself included, has been at the edge of our seats now since the last episode, dying to know how your boat hunt is going.
Well, it's over, Mia.
Yes.
Do you want to tell them what we've done?
You do. You do.
No, come on. I talk too much on here. You tell the happy people out there that we bought a boat.
Yeah, so we were down, me and Andy went down to the OE36 on Monday to check it out. And it was a pretty quick decision, I think, for both of us.
I sent that photo to you, August, of Mia like sitting in the V-berth, looking aft into the salon, smiling. And I forget what you said, but you made a comment, something like, it looks like Mia's convinced.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you look pretty happy there, Mia. I mean, congratulations, guys! Wow, that is pretty cool. It was so I guess you went on a test sail, right, on the Monday after the previous episode, and it was all what you hoped it to be, or how was the experience?
Well, I think the test sail itself was very exhilarating. I think we had about 5 knots of a wind if we were lucky. But the point was I wanted to get out and just kind of hoist the sails and see what the sails looked like and just get a feel for it. And surprisingly, she sailed really well despite the older sails. I mean, she moved pretty good in the light wind, which was a good thing. I mean, all boats move good in heavy winds, so
True.
You want to know that she can actually move in.
It was
not much blowing.
Little to no wind, just enough to kind of crawl along. And that boat has a fixed blade propeller as well, so that didn't help. And I was pleasantly surprised with the light air performance. We should say though that we now have 2 boats. So the Norleen 34. Our current family boat is going to be for sale. So if anybody wants the quick, what do they call it? The Höstpris.
It's like fall price.
Get in touch because it is a freaking awesome boat. There's a chance we may use it for the apprentice program in 59 North next summer, but I think you and Mia are trying to talk me out of that because we have enough projects going on. But we are, ultimately the boat's gonna sell. So if anybody's listening is interested, it's a hell of a boat. So come talk to us.
It is a hell of a boat. Maybe we should do a dedicated podcast on that whenever you guys are ready to ready to let her go, and listing is up on Blocket, and you're all ready for it.
That's a good idea. We could do a nerdy boat shopping deep dive on the Norleen. Notice I'm not using the name because we have a conversation. Part of today's conversation is about boat naming as well, because now we've got that conundrum coming up here.
That's true.
But I think we can save that. Let's talk more about Mia's thoughts, because I mean, I guess my question to you, Mia, is I was raving about the condition of the boat, saying to August, I mean, we did the last podcast on boat shopping, and it was better than the condition of the boat was better than the photos, because the photos only showed you the superficial things. And I was climbing around, looking in lockers, looking in the bilge, and just like I said, giggling at what I found behind the scenes. Did you agree with that? Was it actually what did you expect? I know you know that I tend to exaggerate. What did you expect, Mia, and did it meet or exceed your expectations?
I mean, I think, first of all, the boat has been, you can really tell that the boat has been loved and been really, really taken care of. It's been people who own that boat have been extremely particular about keeping her nice and kind of cultivating the boat, like keeping her, like happy and alive, not just using her as a boat, but actually like caring about her, like you care about like an old classic car. You take her out driving when it's nice weather, and then you really, really take care of her. And just to feel on board, you can feel that when you get on board. Like she's really nicely, like every detail is just really, really nice. And she has a lot of features that's going to be much easier for us to use as a family boat going forward in the summertime, especially if we're going to live board for a long time. There's more storage. Like on Spica, we have the pilot bunks, which are great when you want to have a lot of crew, even though they're pretty tiny. But on the OE, instead, there's big lockers where you can put stuff, and things are just more suited for what we're doing. But yeah, the condition was just really, really nice. And you could see, like you said, Andy, if everything from like the beautiful bilges to like how they had put together new cabinetry when they rebuilt the boat.
I mean, the boat's rebuilt, yeah. So it is. I told you last week that like I think I found the sort of the kind of deal you look for, an old boat that's kind of under people's radar, and that was rebuilt, and that's it. We found it, and I told Mia I said, if we're gonna buy another boat, we are stupid if we don't buy this one. Like we had looked at other boats, but like this is the one. This is the one that you talk about, the kind of deals that come along that it's like I was almost forced to do it because it was such a good boat.
Yeah,
I like that. You're almost forced to do it. Yeah, right.
Couldn't help it. Yeah,
yeah, right.
I just it was yeah.
You take one foot in front of each other, and all of a sudden you are get there.
I gotta say though, later that night, so we drove home and actually slept on the Norleen that night because we had our our night watch at the sailing club that we have to do as part of being a club member. And I had a hard time sleeping. I really had a hard time thinking, not with the decision to buy the OE, but what it meant that we were selling the Norleen. It just meant that like that phase was over. And I've never had that before, because like I told you this last week, August, it in one way, owning a boat already made the shopping less urgent. It's like, well, if I don't find anything, I already have a boat.
Yeah.
And like last time we sold a boat, when we sold Arcturus, we had already bought Eastbjorn and we're starting the business. So like that was an easy, I didn't have any sort of nostalgia towards Arcturus. It was a new phase, but I love the Norleen so much that I had some moments of regret. And Mia, describe what you even talked to me in the car on the way home. You're like, are you okay?
Yeah, I mean, both me and Andy, you could see like, because if it happened a little bit quick, I thought we should go home and sleep on it, but Andy wanted to get it over with because we both kind of had made the decision.
Well,
already.
We were face to face with the seller too. I wanted to negotiate.
I love you guys. You guys are just the best.
And I was like, Andy, let's just make a deal, make a decision, and then go home and sleep and make sure that we feel the same the next morning. He's like, nope, let's make it done now. I was like, well, I guess we can.
I did give you the chance though. I asked you, I said, are you sure? I even said in front of the guy that was selling it, I said, are you sure you don't want to go home and sleep on it? You said that. You're like, no, I'm okay.
As long as you're okay with it.
Well, I wasn't okay with it for a little while.
No, and then like, so everything happened. We signed the contract and everything. And then on the way home, I think both me and Andy had a little bit of that like, oh my goodness, like kind of a stomach turning a little bit. Like, what have we done? Like, this means it doesn't, because like you said, Andy, it's the excitement of getting the new one, but it also means that like we can't keep both.
Yeah.
So like it's more the disappointment. What are we gonna do with the Norlene?
Well, no, it wasn't even
but
that.
like both of us had like that, like kind of like you're very tense. You don't really talk. Like, I'm not sure how I feel about this, but
No, do you know what it felt like to me? Like, I'm very emotional. Boats to me are living things. They're family members, and like it felt to me like we were getting a new puppy before the old dog died. And like we were just like, all right, he's already old and done. We're just gonna take him out back and shoot him. It was like really emotional. It just felt like it felt wrong. It's
well,
like,
we're not gonna
what are
put
we
Spike
doing
in the
here?
backyard and shoot her.
No, I know we're not. But it just felt like I was neglecting an old friend. Like, you know, just like, sorry, I found somebody newer and nicer, and even though the new boat's older, but that's what it felt like. I had a really hard time. I mean, to me, boats have a soul. And it felt like by not, like we could have kept the Norlene and put an autopilot on it, got a dinghy for it, done all the things to make it a little bit more nicer to live aboard. And it felt wrong to not do that. It felt wrong not to give the boat a chance to be what we want it to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We didn't even give it a chance. And it's like, yeah, that it took me 24 hours or so to kind of come to terms with that. And I'm still not 100% to terms with it. And the thing is, like, looking down the dock, there's no question that the Norlene is a cooler boat. We talked about cool factor in that episode.
Yeah.
They're both boats have exceedingly oozing with cool factor, but the Norlene is just cooler. To me, it's just a cooler boat. And like, I can't believe I'm letting that go.
Yeah. I understand completely what you mean. I mean, boats are living, breathing things to me as well. And yeah, I've cried, I think, almost every time I've sold a boat, which is quite a few times now. And yeah, it's like, you know, you're just giving up an old friend, and it feels tough. And geez, I remember when I had to sell my dad's fishing boat, which I, you know, partly grew up on after he had his stroke, and it just been sitting then for years. You're kind of hoping it's going to come back, and it just never happens. And you try and convince yourself, yeah, I can keep this, I can maintain this, and then you kind of just have to let it go. And geez, that was sad. And I'm still, to this day, sometimes I go on, you know, Finn.no, the Norwegian Blocket, just to see if it's there, is for sale some chance. And I have these fantasies of buying it back and restoring it. And boats are friends.
Well, what you're saying is, I mean, same things. Boats are living things because they're always connected to something in our lives. And like Spica, the Norlene 34, we bought that a few months after Axel was born, after we'd been in the hospital with him and all that emotions. And then we had COVID. So that was our COVID boat. We bought that summer 2020. And like, it was at the depths of my depression. Mia says like she's happy we bought that boat because it gave me something to focus on that wasn't my own depression.
Right.
And, you know, and there's a lot into it that, like, I look at this Norlene as like, that's Axel's boat. Like, that's Axel. That represents our first boat as a family. And then even to your point about looking for old boats, Arcturus is still sailing in Sweden, and it happens to be at Vindo. So we got to see it before. And Neil, the owner who bought it from us over almost 10 years ago now, 2015, he emailed me recently and made some comment about if I ever sell Arcturus. This was before we started really boat shopping in earnest. And I was like, Neil, don't tease me. Like, are you actually thinking about selling it? Because like, maybe I'll buy it right now. And he's like, no, it'll be at least 5 years. Okay. I was like, okay, good. Because like, I don't want to be tempted. Because like, same thoughts. Like, man, we could, because I'm very susceptible to nostalgia. So, you know.
Indeed. Indeed.
But I'm completely at peace with Arcturus. I'm glad he wants to keep it because it's not the right boat for us right now for our family. But if he had said he was going to sell it, it would have been a difficult decision not to buy it.
Totally. No, I could understand that. But back to the.
But Mia, can you just? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
August.
no, just back to the test sale. You said, Mia, that it felt really right. It sounds like it was a very kind of instinctual decision on your part as well. Was that like was it like a gut feeling thing mostly for you too, or did you have a checklist that you kind of were following, or is you yeah, you.
No,
Th-
I
this
think
has been.
to me it just
Yes, no, sorry. This is. I know that you, Andy. This was a very slow and meticulous process for your part, but it's still been a pretty fast thing with you guys getting a new boat. And I know that you sometimes like to take things a little slower, Mia. So how did that feel?
No, it was good. I'm actually glad that like Andy got to go down and see the boat the week before, and then I came down a week later, because then we actually had a week to discuss. Because yeah, Andy is so annoying. Like when we decided we were gonna buy a car, I was up at my sister. We just talked about we have to buy a car, and I was up at my sister's house for 3 days. And in these 3 days, I think I had about 100 messages from Andy talking about the car, research done, articles, this and that, and then about 15 different cars we should buy. And I was like, I'm at my sister, I'm going out skiing, can you just take it slow? But then on the other hand, it was a very intense, quick process. And then like 2 days later, when I came home, we bought a car, and it was a really good car, and that's the car we have. So like, even though it was a quick decision, it was in one way good because it went over with quickly. But
just because it's quick doesn't mean it's not thorough.
I know.
I just go into things at 100 miles an hour,
yes,
and can be very productive, and my research just happens quickly.
And the same thing with this boat thing. Like we started talking about buying, like looking, we just started talking about looking at different boats. And when Andy gets one idea like that in his head, I mean, it's like you're just jumping on that wave and you're surfing and you're barely standing up, and then eventually you crash somewhere, and it's either like crash landing on the beach or crash landing with a new boat. That's kind of what it feels like.
However, I don't think, I think you need to, I think I deserve credit. I don't think once did I ever pressure you about this. I deliberately wanted you to have this decision on your own.
No, not pressuring.
Because I wasn't like that convinced myself. Like, you know what I mean? Because I really like Spica. I really like the Norlene.
I wouldn't say pressuring, but like I put my phone down for 30 minutes, and and when you pick your phone up again, you have like 115 like messages of different thoughts and processes and boats and links, and like it just feels like a fire hose in your face. Which is in one way well done, Andy, because you really do the research. But yeah, it's pretty intense. So in one way, I'm glad it's over. But no, I thought, to me, it was...
August, back to the question. He asked you, did you have a practical checklist, or was this an instinctual decision when you came to terms with, okay, this is the boat we want to buy?
No, I think when I came to terms with, okay, we may actually... There may be a better suited boat than Spike out there for what we want to do, because we want to set ourselves up for like family sailing for the next at least 5 years. Could be even longer, but like you don't know what's going to happen beyond 5 years. And when we started realizing that Spica is going to need substantial upgrades from what we have right now, or we're going to get a new boat, I think.
Or we do nothing on Spica and keep it as a camping boat. I mean, we'd use that for 4 years just happily.
Yeah.
But we wanted, just the dinghy, for example. Axel loves dinghy rides. We didn't have a dinghy.
Yeah. Or a place to store a dinghy.
Well, true.
So I think when we found this boat and seeing what condition it was in, and to me, it just felt right. And going on the boat, it was, because sometimes too, you can get really nice boats, but they don't feel like home. But this one, when I stepped aboard, that's why Andy kept asking me before we went down, what do you think? What do you think? Like 10 times or 100 times. And I just told him, I don't know until I feel the boat. Like to me, and that also was really comforting when we went down to look at the boat, because the seller, he even mentioned that like for him, it's such a, the boats, he also said about the living thing, and like he was just mentioning that like, can you guys imagine, like, this boat is over 50 years old. Can you imagine all the conversations that's been had in this salon over the 50 years of boats? And he's still in touch. He bought the boat 10 years ago, and he's still in touch with the previous owners and chat with them, and sometimes meet up with them and stuff. So I love that the boat have a happy history that's like good for the soul, and that played into the gut feeling of it's being right for me. So, and it did tick off a lot of the practical decisions. Like Andy said, It has a dinghy. It even has a cockpit locker where you can store the dinghy. It has an autopilot already put in. It has
Chart plotter at the helm, which is nice.
Yeah, but like it just
Hot water shower in the cockpit.
a lot of this small things that we could retrofit. It just was already there, and the boat was so loved for. And in one way, like in Sweden, we have a saying that "var sak har sin tid," and it's like everything has its own time and place. And Spica definitely had the Norlin had her time and place. And maybe it is actually time to move on to a new time and place for her and for the OE. So I'm pretty good at holding on to things just because I'm very loyal in that regard. Like if I get something, I have a hard time getting rid of it. But I also trying to work on getting better at not holding on to things just because. And sometimes it's okay with a change, even though it's hard.
The only constant is change.
There we go.
Aye.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good to hear. I've been thinking a little bit about these kind of gut feelings since our last conversation, Andy, and I think, I'm a pretty, a stoic and pragmatic guy. I like to think, but I really do believe in these gut feelings. I think that's because it's all. There's nothing left to chance by that. I don't think. It reminded me of this one time. It was one of the chess world championships, one of them, and Magnus Carlsen, which is the best chess player in the world, he had made some move that the TV studio hosts, experts were like just analyzing and talking about for like 30 minutes, and like how genius it was. And then in the after the match in the press conference, they asked about, did you see, what was your thoughts about these lines that you opened up with this move? And he was just no, it just felt right. It just looked like a good move. And it was all just like, and I think that's what happens when you're that good at something. Like you don't necessarily, you're just like taking in all of this, and a lot of the decision making just kind of happens, in the background. And so I think it's a very, very good decision to trust your gut feelings on these things.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, nothing more to add to that. That's exactly right.
No, absolutely. We follow guts more than anything. I think that's like one of our biggest, strongest decision-making things is following gut feelings.
I think if you follow your gut feelings, you're never going to regret something. Even if it turns out to be wrong, at least you followed your gut. If you deliberately go against the gut feeling, you're just setting yourself up for regret, even if it goes well, I think, because it's just like not the way to live your life.
But I think also like the longer you've done something on the same thing, like we've been around boats for so long that it's easier to trust your gut because you have something to back onto. Like if I would go out in a completely new field or area, it would be harder to trust the gut because I don't have anything to like mentally backing up the gut. But I think with boats and stuff, it's pretty quick to understand that, yep, this is a gut feeling. That's enough. Done.
Yeah. Yeah, no, very, very true. You were a little worried about you thought the sail area to displacement ratio, Andy, was a little off, and you were worried that she might not be sailing too well in the light airs. And it does sound like you got light airs. Tell us a little bit about how that felt.
Well, so interestingly, we remembered that friends of ours here in Sweden have an OE36. They have hull number 1. This one's hull number 4.
Oh.
And I was chatting with them a long time during the week between when I looked at it and when we went back to look at it. And I was kind of asking them, like, hey, and it's not just me that sees those numbers as being low. Like, I found an article in an old Swedish sailing magazine where one of the builders actually built one for himself and put a taller fractional rig on it because he admitted like the boat's underpowered. So and the way he was describing it, for East Coast archipelago sailing, which is where we are, it tends to be light winds in the summertime because you get a high pressure that sits over here, blocking all those storms that go up the coast on where you live. August.
You're welcome.
So you tend to get a lot of light airs in the summer. So this guy took one of the new OEs back in the 70s, put a bigger rig on it, and said that he basically didn't reef it down to the stock sail area until the wind got up to about 14 knots. So like it wasn't just my, and again, that kind of backs up my intuition looking at the numbers was like, this is lower number than I want. And sure enough, you've got other people saying the same thing. My sailmaker, Oscar here at UK Sales in Sweden, he actually helped retrofit an OE36 with a taller rig more recently. So it's not just me that thinks that. That being said, like I said, it was better than I expected. I'm certainly not gonna do anything initially. Oscar, our sailmaker, was also like, look, if you get a good big Genoa on that boat, it's gonna sail better. Certainly, it's gonna be, this is a 70s era boat like Eastbjorn, where it's a small mainsail relative to the Genoa, so you get a big overlapping Genoa. If you're gonna modernize the rig, doing like a 9/10 fractional with a smaller jib and a bigger mainsail proportionally would make the boat sail faster and easier to handle in light air. So, in a couple of years, I wouldn't be surprised if we're having a podcast about that project, because it's something I really do want to do, but I'm going to be patient because the boat sails well enough as it is. I always give advice to people when you first buy a boat, don't change anything before you use it for a while.
Yeah.
And I usually don't take that advice. But in this case, I'm gonna, because like it's going to be expensive doing that. So we're not going to change anything for the first summer, and we'll have to do another podcast on how the boat actually sails after that. But to what I was saying, our friends that have the boat, they call it it's a sweet sailing boat. And that's what's most important to me. It doesn't have to be, I don't really care how fast the knot meter says we're going. If the boat feels nice to sail, that's what's most important.
And I think also, like, if we would, the purpose of the next couple of years is going to be sailing around the archipelago, a couple hours sailing every day or second day or so. I think if you would set out on a transatlantic circuit, maybe we would have a different perspective on the importance of the speed of the boat. But as long as, I think for me, as long as she's fun to sail and sails well and has a good feel to it, it doesn't really matter if we go half a knot slower through the archipelago when we popping around the between islands.
What really stood out though, besides the sailing performance, it has been a very long time since I've sailed on a boat that didn't have any lines led to the cockpit from the mast. And Spica, the Norleen, has every line from the mast going to the cockpit. So there's 6 lines in the cockpit just cluttering everything up. And it's really easy to sail, and you've got controls for everything. But going forward to hoist the main, to play with the Vang, to do all that stuff was really a refreshingly fun experience. And also, the Dodger, there's nothing coming through the Dodger. So the cockpit is super clean. And it's just like, for what we want to do, that's actually a huge improvement over the Norleen, where you've got 8 lines in the cockpit that Axel's always trying to use as fishing lines and throw over the side and stuff. And it's just a much cleaner, the reefing lines are on the side of the boom. Everything is at the mast. The only lines in the cockpit are the jib sheets and the main sheet. And that is something I would say I wasn't looking for. But wow, do I really like that?
Yeah, it's kind of going back to basics here. That's pretty cool. We and
it's such a small boat. I mean, it's like, why not go forward to do it? It's you walk a few feet, and like Mia, we were talking before. Mia said, "Oh, that might make it harder to single hand," but because the boat has an autopilot, that counteracts that.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There we go. Yeah, there was a whole discussion on this topic on the quarterdeck now last week about the advantages and disadvantages about leading lines back to the cockpit. And Tola Martz, I think, initiated this. Shout out to Tola. I think he had been looking at a Garcia 52 that had 22 lines led back to the cockpit from the mast. In which case, you're yeah, I mean, that's a lot of lines. That's a lot. That's a lot of pulleys. That's a lot of blocks
to keep track of. Yeah. Well, not to mention you've got no hardware mounted on the coach roof to create leaks and things like that. Everything's just simpler. It's just simpler. It's just nice. The halyards don't have to be. They can be 10 feet shorter, so you're saving $3 a foot on line. It's like just really appealing. And the biggest thing I think is not having anything come through the Dodger. So where the Dodger's attached to the coaming at the front, it's completely sealed. So you're not going to get, you see this on Eastbjorn, you get green water coming over the coach roof and it shoots right through the holes where the line comes through, and then water falls down the hatch if you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
You don't get any of that. So I'm not advocating for that, particularly on bigger boats, but it is a nice little bonus that it didn't even occur to me until we actually used the boat.
I think it all depends on your situation. I think with you guys all being very fit, and you're never gonna take that boat into conditions where going up on the foredeck is going to be risky at all. I can only see benefits to that. It's sounds great
for sure. But back to your question about the sail area, what we've effectively done is, and one of the reasons that I came to terms with basically trading the Norlene for the OE is the OE was just built better. Like the quality of the materials in the interior, it's like the difference between like the Norlene was kind of the 70s version of a modern production boat. Lots of fiberglass moldings, thin plywood bulkheads and paneling and stuff, lots of veneers. Fine, nothing wrong with it. But then you go on board the OE and it's like solid wood doors, more like Eastbjorn, more like a Swan construction. And it just occurred to me that the Norlene will never be as nice as this OE because it's not built to the same standard on the interior. But we've now traded kind of the quality of fit and finish on the inside of the boat for a lack of quality in the sails and rigging. Like I've got the sails and rig on Spike on the Norlene are freaking banger. Like brand new sails, all Dyneema halyards, tall mast, boat sails like a sports car. It's a freaking awesome sailboat. And now the OE's got kind of old tired sails, Dacron. I told Mia like, oh man, like I didn't think we'd have to get new sails, but we might. I'm not sure I can be seen with this. Even though there's nothing wrong with them. It's just like they're kind of old Dacron baggy sails. I'm just like, shit. But given what we're trying to do with the boat, it's a fair trade. And I'm not going to buy new sails for the boat until I decide on what we're going to do with the rig, because I'm not going to buy new sails twice. If we decide I really want to do this rig project, then I'll wait and do that, try to find a used mast and redo the whole sail plan. In fact, I emailed Bob Perry yesterday to ask him if he wanted to help me design that.
Nice.
So I'm just going to live with it because it's a trade-off. We traded like sort of interior fit and finish and creature comforts for a lesser sailboat. Not that it's a lesser sailboat, but you know what I mean. It's kind of we've traded in our sports car for a minivan.
Family life, man. That's what happens. We'll see.
I'd say it's a pretty cool minivan.
Yeah, very cool. Was the hull clean at all? How's the anti-fouling?
It had been sitting in the dock for a while, so Martin, the seller, even said there's probably a basketball barnacles on the propeller. So,
but interesting too is
Didn't
that,
seem to be that big of a deal.
in Mälaren, the in lake where we are, you are not allowed to have any like the
no biocides on the anti-fouling.
Oh, okay.
So and that boat has that, so we're probably gonna have to blast it and put new paint on. We had silicone paint on the Norlene, so that's a job we have to do
before we put the boat away next winter at our club here in the lake. We're gonna have to redo the bottom paint
because you're not allowed, like you're not even allowed to have the boat in the club with that, which is good. I like that they put that restriction on because it makes it a no-brainer to change it.
Yeah, true. I'm just thinking that's something that really could impact the performance, and if you get a folding prop and clean the hull.
Exactly. I said that to Mia. We have to get a feathering prop for sure is on the list because that's going to make a major difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Very nice, man. This is so exciting. I'm so happy for you guys. It's.
I want to talk about the negotiating process a little bit because
do it.
I am a freaking lousy negotiator. I mean, if there's something I want, like I am in a very weak position. But I really tried to be smart about this, and it was interesting because, we're going to talk about that. Mia just wrote down no price. Yes, we're going to talk about it. I've talked about this on the last podcast. Okay, so this is part of what we're educating people here on. This is part of the deal. So the boat was listed for $415,000, which is about $41,500, almost 10 to 1. And this guy, Martin, when we signed the contract, to your point, and this was, say what you said about Mia, it's almost more important who you're buying the boat from than the boat itself. I really like that.
Yeah, like I think when you're buying boats, especially boats that have souls and like older boats, I was joking with that, it's almost more important that you know the owner than the boat itself, because if you're just buying it from a broker and have no idea who the owner was, it's like because of that soul in the boat and like how the person have taken care of the boat and love the boat, that is to me so important compared to just like buying a shell. So I think it's really neat how here in Sweden, especially with these smaller boats, that a lot of people just go straight to the seller and the buyer. You don't have any middleman in there, and I really, really like that. And I think,
Martin, if he's listening, he is the perfect person to buy a boat from. He didn't do the rebuild. He bought the boat from a couple in Uppsala who actually did the rebuild. So he's owned it for 10 years. He's my age. Had big plans with it and then used it for 10 years and is now moving. So kind of changing his life plans a little bit. But he was so meticulous in how he maintained the boat. He's an engineer. That beautiful electrical panel that we talked about with the James Bond toggle switches, he designed and built that himself.
No way.
And he designed and built the lithium battery system himself over the last couple of years. Those are things he did to the boat in addition to the couple that rebuilt it. But like when you see the little things he did, that beautiful on the reel we put up on Instagram, there's a beautiful locker that has the pressure water system and the refrigerator compressor in it. He designed and installed all that stuff. He did all the labeling on the hoses. He designed the holding tank in the head and all the cabinetry in the head and built all that himself. Like I just said that, built the fridge. So the more we learned about what actually he did to the boat and how methodical he was, that little countertop thing we talked about above the galley, between the galley and the salon,
yeah.
He built that and installed that. And it's just like,
wow,
man, this guy knows how to take care of a boat. And when we sat down at his parents' house to sign the contract, his parents' house was around the corner, and they had the dinghy and the old sails were stored there and stuff. He was crying during the signing the contract, so it was like emotional for him. And it's just like, it's just like what you want to see. But back to the negotiation, the boat was listed at $415. I flat out asked Martin, "What did you pay for it when you bought it 10 years ago?" He said he paid $400. And I was like, I went into this. Mia and I kind of kicked him off the boat when we were there looking at it and said, "Hey, just give us a half an hour to have a conversation." And I said, "What's our strategy going to be here?" So my strategy was like just to go in, be honest, and be like, "Look, I'm a lousy negotiator. Say that right up front. But this is how I feel, and this is where I'm at." And I told him right off the bat, I'm not paying full price out of principle. And I kind of told him a few things like we were looking at and everything. And then he was honest and came back and he's like, "Well, I'm going to be disappointed if I get less than 400 because I don't need to sell it right now. I don't need the money. I didn't think it would sell this quick. I thought it would sell sometimes next summer." So we went back and forth. We offered him. So then I called my dad. I was like, what's normal on this? My dad's like, "Well, usually you start with a starting bid. If you like the boat and you think it's worth it, like 10% discount. So 10% discount, that puts us at $375. So we back at his driveway, at the driveway of his parents' house. I said, "Martin, like how about $375? Like my dad said that's a reasonable offer that wouldn't offend you." He's like, "Well," it's like, "I really wanted to get $400 for it." And I didn't tell him this, but I told Mia, like, I'm not paying a number that has, if there's a number if the number has a 4 in it at the beginning, I don't want to, like that, I can't do that. It just wouldn't feel right. So we settled at $395, which is exactly halfway.
Right.
So we got a 5% discount on the asking price. That's $39,500 basically in US dollars. Now that was a lot more. There were 3 or 4 other OE36s on the market. Another one that had been pretty well restored, had a newer engine, sold for I think $260. So this was a substantial increase from that. And I told Martin, like, I know the boat is worth what you're asking for it. Just like I know obviously it's been way more money has been spent on that than is the asking price, but you never get that back from like a market standpoint.
Yeah, no.
I didn't want to overpay too much because if we do not that I ever think about reselling it, but like I didn't want to feel like I was getting ripped off. So I kind of talked about, these other ones on the market. So we paid almost twice what the next most expensive one was, but it's a different boat. You can clearly see it's not the same. Even though it's the same boat, it's not the same boat.
Yeah, totally.
So,
comparing like the same make and model boat at that age is it doesn't
it's
really
impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
how did you feel about the negotiation?
No, but I think back to the boats. I think a lot of the older than after number 6, I think they were more home built. which also plays into it. And no, I think the price was a fair price. At least it feels right. I don't know if it's good or not, but it felt like a good number that settles with what we kind of gonna use it for. I don't want to spend too much money on a boat that we're gonna sail the archipelago with, but also like I want to have a boat that we can be proud of. So
yeah,
I think it was a good number.
Yeah, I think so too. So
especially since here in Sweden it doesn't cost that much money to keep the boat. Like we will keep her inside in the shed. We belong to the club. Like I think since we don't have any really running cost of keeping the boat in a marina or a boat club, like hauling, storing and stuff, it feels okay to spend money on a boat. But if you start thinking about, like in Annapolis, I know Andy's dad spends a fortune just to keep the boat in the water, then you have to think about, okay, what do we actually want to, what is going to be the monthly cost for the boat rather than the...
I mean, my dad pays $500 a month to have a nice slip in Eastport, and we're going to pay $500 for the whole season for a slip in Stockholm for our summer harbor. And we own the shed in the winter here at the club that we can then resell when we're done with it. So it's like you were saying, it's a different deal. Insurance for the new boat, I got a quote from Pantanius to value it at $40,000. It's cost us $420 a year for the premium. So it's like, you know, it's a pretty low cost of ownership. So, and I don't think, I'm happy with the negotiation. I mean, I wasn't gonna leave there without buying that boat. So I feel like I got what I wanted because we didn't have a number with a 4 in it, and Martin got within $500 of his desire. So I think we're both happy.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too bad. Like you really want to just be on speaking terms when you finish a deal like that. Yeah. So it's worth. Well, if you could have saved a little more money, but it just ended up pissing the guy off, that would probably not have been worth it. So,
well, so two things. The best part about the deal for us was I'm out of time to now put away 2 boats for the winter. So Martin agreed. He already has the boat scheduled to be hauled out. He has everything to put it away. He's dealing with it. He's hauling it out, winterizing it, putting it away for me, and leaving all the stuff at his dad's house. And because he's at a sailing club, they launch all their boats in April. I'm not going to be back from the South Pacific until May. So he's going to launch the boat, set it up for us in the spring. Meanwhile, we'll own it. We own it as of this week, but he's going to launch it and set it up so the next time we see the boat or use the boat will be in May, and it'll be ready to go for us. So like that's worth a lot for me.
That is worth a whole lot. Yeah, that would be very expensive to pay somebody for. And also, if you have somebody doing all that work for you, it's even better that you're friends with them. Otherwise, you might find
exactly
they winterized your engine with urine or some other.
Well, he has also, he gets a little bit of a longer runway to say goodbye to the boat as well, because I don't think he thought it would sell that quick, and now he actually gets to do his routine, put the boat away, get it back out again, and he'll probably sail with me to bring it up to Stockholm next summer. So
cool.
It feels right.
Very cool.
And what I was going to say, something else. Now I lost it.
I'll say in the meantime, the kind of.
Oh no, sorry. Hang on. So, with this negotiation, it's one thing. My friend Adam back in the U.S. just bought a Beneteau 373 left from like 2009 or something, like 2006 maybe. Well, how many Beneteau 373s from that era exist that you can shop around and negotiate on? Like, this is a one of one we're talking about. Yes, we said there's other OE 36s out there, but because they're all so different and so old that you have nothing to compare it to. Mm-hmm. So if you want that one of one, you're kind of in a position that you're in a less good negotiating position because there's only one of them that exists. You can't say, "Oh, I'm going to go over to Fred's over there and buy his." The Fred doesn't exist. So that's a unique situation as well.
That is true. That's a good point. I was gonna say that thinking about my own boat buyings, negotiations that I've done, the kind of deals that I've always been looking out for has been, people who clearly just wants to get rid of their boats, like who's like impatient, and if you can get people who like has a diamond in the rough for something that's really nice, but they don't appreciate it or don't know about it. So when I'm going through Finn, and I'm looking at boats, and I see like the beautiful, nice backlit kind of photos. I just skip right past them, and then I see an ad where like it's like the aspect ratio is wrong, and there's a thumb in front of the lens, and they didn't even bother cleaning the boat, and it's all it's like all just cell phone photography, and it all crap. And then I think, okay, yes, this, I found it. Like this, because then that's the way I've always been shopping for boats, because then okay, like they didn't put any effort whatsoever into making this boat sell. Like they didn't, not even to the point of just double checking that their photos were okay. They just want to get rid of this thing. Yeah. And then you can go in and, start out being very positive, enthusiastic, and then just kind of have a lot of patience and just let them stew, and they'll throw a lowball offer at you at the end. So that's the way I've always
I like
approached this. But of course,
I would love.
Was that Mia?
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say, I would love to see Andy going through that process. He would panic halfway through and just buy it full price because he can't stand it anymore.
Yeah. The best thing also, pro tip for me here, if you can find a boat that has several owners, like if several people own the boat together, you can get, a great, because you can then, if you ask for a $10,000 discount, they think, that's only $5,000 for me. That's okay. So
that's much more common here in Scandinavia too, that groups of people, particularly young people, own boats together.
Yeah, it's quite useful.
And then you can start talking crap about each other, and then you can make them fight, and then you can then they're just gonna give it to you.
All right, we're derailing here. We gotta talk about the name, because that's been a big topic of discussion and a big part of the boat's soul that I had a hard time getting over with. So August, we started talking about this with you offline the other day, and you're like, no, save it for the podcast. So how do you want to introduce this section?
Well, it's I think I started by asking you if you were going to keep the original name, which is Hermione?
Harmony.
Right. And because it was also beautifully inscribed on the electrical panel there, and also on the hull and everything. I guess I'll ask you again. Are you going to keep the original name?
So
tell them what Martin said when I said we're probably going to change it. So Martin kept the original name because he had read something by Jimmy Cornell about all the bad juju that you get if you change the boat's name. So he kept it. So that was the name before he owned it. And I told him, like, no offense, but we're going to change the name. And he said, well, that's fine. It'll be your bad juju that you have to live with.
Yeah. So it started with because to me, I love the name Spica. I think Spica is like the perfect name. I love the way Axel says Spica. I love that it's a star. It's like follow our church. And I told Andy, it's like, man, I can't believe that. Like, because Andy always been in the philosophy of like, you should always change the name. And I was like, we blew it. Spica, like we already why did we use it up so quick? Because it's like the perfect name.
Well, also
because I love that. It just kind of, the whole thing about Spica, I just love it. And Andy and I have been in a big, even before we decided to buy the boat, like if we buy the boat, are we gonna keep the name? Are we not gonna keep the name? And you were pretty firm in the beginning that no, we cannot keep the name because Spica is Spica.
Well, yeah, it's like if we had a second kid, which we're not, naming it like Axel 2. Like you wouldn't do that. It just, to me, like the name sort of is part of the soul of the boat. Like Spica is the Norleen 34. I had a really hard time with that. But then on reflection, growing up, my dad had a series of boats all called Sojourner. Never Sojourner 2 or 3 or whatever, all Sojourner. And when I think back, there were 3 Sojourners that I grew up with. The first was an Allied Princess Ketch, 36 foot, that we went to the Bahamas on, which I've told that story a bunch. That was Sojourner. Then when I was in high school, my dad sold that to get a bigger boat so my sister and I could come down and bring friends along. That was an Irwin 42, the freaking ugliest boat you've ever seen. But a fantastic minivan boat for teenagers on the bay. That was called Sojourner. And then after that, when I got out of college, him and my mom bought the Vauquier Hood 38 that he ended up taking to the Caribbean several times, also called Sojourner. And like on reflection, all 3 of those boats were Sojourner. They were like, I can think of them as that was part of the soul of those boats, even though they had the same name. And anytime my dad sold those boats, he made it a stipulation that the buyer changed the name. So in that case, and before I was born, or the boat my parents had when I was born that I sailed on, I don't remember, I was a baby, was called Zigane. That was a beautiful double-ended ketch, a Kaiser Christina, I think it was called, 37-foot ketch. I wish he still had that. It's a freaking really cool boat. But that was called Zigane, and it occurred to me that like maybe Spica for us is our family boat in that same sense. Regardless of what the boat is, maybe Spica like transfers the soul of the family boat from one boat to the next as we go. And ultimately, that's what we decided to do, that we're going to keep the name Spica because of that. But also, this is a little bit more practical. Axel does not deal well with change. And trying to explain to a 4-year-old, because to him, Spica is his boat. So we decided, and we just told him yesterday morning, we're like, Axel, we got a new Spica. And I think it's a lot easier for him to understand. We showed him the pictures, showed him the quarter berth that he's going to sleep in and stuff. And already he's super excited and talking about new Spica and old Spica. So to him, he's already made the mental leap to the new boat. And it's just easier. And like Mia said, we love the name so much that we just don't want to get rid of it. So now the challenge is, if we keep the old Spica, the Norlene, for the business apprentice program, we got to come up with a new name for that. And I think that's going to be part of the apprenticeship program, is letting the apprentice that takes charge of the boat for a summer come up with a new name.
Yeah.
So I know that's not so traditional, but it's kind of traditional in my family specifically. I'm taking what my parents did with Sojourner and applying it to us, and I think that's going to be our family boat name.
Very cool. It is a very good name. So I can see that. I kind of I like that. It's untraditional, but it's kind of nice. And
as far as like the bad juju, I've changed the name of every boat I've ever bought. So maybe it'll catch up to me one day, but we'll do the whole ritual. There's a whole ritual behind that, and we'll do all that properly.
That's right. Yeah, you need to do it. You need to do it right. There's a whole procedure. And
so, what is your philosophy, August, on the changing name? Have you changed names? Have you?
I have changed names. So I've bought 4 sailboats, I think, and I've changed the name of 2 of them. I think if I can keep the name, I like to do so, because it's such a, as we often talk about, it's like part of the boat's legacy and history, and all the boats I've ever owned has been super old, so they have this long history, and it's kind of cool to keep that. And then you talk to people who has experiences with the boat, and they see it's the same name, and it's kind of connected to the past in that way, which I think is really nice. So I think like you there needs to be a good reason to change the name. If the name should not just be a little bit cooler, it needs to be a lot better, or you need some kind of reason for the name change in order to change it. But I mean,
can you just, speaking of the best boat names ever, can you please remind people what the name of your Storfidra was, which is my favorite boat name I've ever heard?
Skalken, which is
and tell us what Skalken means in Norwegian.
Skalken is that first slice that you cut off a loaf of bread, like the end piece, the round end piece, and that was just what she reminded me of on land. She was just 25-foot double ender, a very old full keel. So that's just what she looked like. So
love that so much, Skalken.
And that had a super like pretentious. What was the Aztec princess or something name, I think, originally? And it's like, no, that's not gonna fly. And so I changed that. And then one of my older boats, the liveaboard one I had when I liveaboard, she was called Synne, which is just like a girl's name in Norway, which I I probably wouldn't have called the boat that, but I think that's great, and it's the boat's name, and that's fine, and it was good enough that I wanted to keep it. So, but yeah, I mean, you gotta have a name that you like, and I find just like with people, like if you like the boat, you'll like the name. Like the name really grew on me on that boat. That just became synonymous with the boat. But I've sailed many boats as like a charter skipper, where I've just like been reluctant to use the radio because I'm embarrassed of the boat name. And you can't have that. So
no.
Yeah.
Cool. What were you gonna say, Mia? You lost it.
I lost it. Don't remember.
Yeah. As far as the bad luck thing goes, I think as long as you do it properly and get rid of all the old stuff and throw the whiskey over the side in all the directions and make sure the what is it, the ledger of the deep, where all the names of all the boats are described in Poseidon's ledger of the deep. You just got to make sure that you scrub it off for there. So.
It was fun. Back to the negotiation thing. There was that beautiful stainless steel oil lamp hanging over the table that we commented on in the photos that actually belonged to Martin's dad. And he said, "I'm not sure that goes with a boat." And I was like, "Look, I really want that." And his parents were there at their house. We had a little fika, and his mom made a nice little apple pie and some sandwiches and coffee. It was very sweet. And the dad, who I had met the week before, because Martin wasn't there the week before, I met his dad, and he gave me the keys to go and look on the boat. He said, he's like, "I promise it will still be there when you get it." It was very sweet.
That is
very.
So
it just was such a sweet little whole process. It was such a pleasant experience, and like you were saying, Mia, it's like so nice to buy a boat from somebody that is fun to buy a boat from.
Yeah.
It was just a very pleasant. Like, I think we probably made a new friend out of this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean that's such a great thing, and that's what the boats become these memories, just like we talked about, and it's really sad when they get tainted by too rough negotiations or I had a whole thing with the guy that bought Skulken from me. Eventually had lots of complaints to me, and we ended up not. We're not friends, to make a long story short, and that really sucked. Like, I thought that was really sad because it's you kind of if you're giving a puppy to somebody, really you want them to be a nice person, knowing that it's gone to a nice home, and and that goes both ways, obviously. So
yeah, and that is cool. Like, same thing like with Arcturus, we have so many good memories from being on her, and to know that Neil keeps sailing her, and we got to see her when we were down at Vinda. It just makes the memories even sweeter.
Yeah, no, very true. Man, so you're gonna.
Any last words, Mia?
August.
Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Yeah,
August?
no, I was just gonna say you're gonna have to do something about that electrical panel now, where the name is inscribed. You gotta bring the artwork over from Old Spica.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna have to do that. I'll figure something out. But man, I'm not doing anything with those switches. Those switches are so cool.
Yeah, no, those are nice. Is there any legal? This is gonna be a little bit of a tangent, but is there any legal stuff about having two boats with the same name? Are you allowed to do that?
Well, I'll change the name on the Old Spica first anyway. So
Yeah.
I think in Sweden, there's not really a registry here. You just do whatever you want. Like
In Sweden, it's definitely just a free for
for
all.
recreational boats, there's no rules. You stick whatever name on the stern you want, and then away you go.
Right.
Like there's no registry for recreational boats under a certain length. There's no registry, so it's like
Crazy.
it's a total free for all.
Madness. I was on the on Eastbjorn a little while back, and I was down at the nav station, and somebody called for Eastbjorn on the radio, and they asked just like a quick, just on 16, like, "Hey, can you hold to port, and I'll go on the inside of you," or something like that. And I just looked at the chart. We were fine. I said, "Yeah, sure, go ahead, no problem." And then I just, like, after a minute, looked at the chart and looked up, and there was no boats around. And I just And then a day after, we saw this little ferry, or sand transport going back and forth the next fjord, which was called Isbjørn. So we probably answered the radio for them, and I hope they didn't get in trouble. It's another good reason to have a unique boat name.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Cool. Well,
any last word, Andy?
No, I'm excited. It's a shame buying a boat in the fall. I'm not going to get to sail it until next May. It seems like crazy, but there it is.
True.
That's why you get the Höstpris.
That's right, yeah.
Höstpris. Are you sad now that you've bought the boat, that the search is over?
Yeah, I actually just wrote about this for my Sail magazine column, and the first line was your line about the worst part about buying a boat is that the search is over. So, I mean, you never stop looking. But I'm very happy about all this because I don't do well when I'm searching for something I need. I get a lot of anxiety when I'm searching for something I need to come to a conclusion on. So I'm I'm very satisfied, and I'm very happy that this is the future for us.
Very nice. That's I'm very excited too. This is cool. Looking forward to seeing her. Hopefully sail on her someday, and be very nice.
This is the last episode of our Quarterdeck podcast season. I think we're back with On the Wind next week, if I'm not mistaken, and then we'll see each other in a few weeks at Boat Show.
That's true. Yeah, that's going to be a blast. Looking forward to that. It's going to be good to meet in the flesh and to see all of our fans and all of our collaborators. So that's going to be really cool.
Cool. Well, thanks, Skipper.
Thank you guys. Thanks, and congratulations again. Tell Axel and Spica I said hi.
Thanks. Hold fast.
Hold fast. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to join the Quarterdeck, go to quarterdeck.59-north.com. The Quarterdeck podcast is produced by August Sandberg for 59 North. Music is by the Storm Weather Shanty Choir.